welcome to Forbidden Planet TV. I'm Andrew Sumner. Guess who I've got with us? Not only one of the greatest creators in the US right now, even though he's Canadian, but also our old friend Chip Zdarsky. How are you, man?
Woo!
Yeah, the returning champ. He's
Yeah.
back. He's back with more street level Marvel goodness because now we're here to talk about an extremely intriguing title. What can you tell us about Daredevil, the woman without fear?
Nothing. All
Thank
right.
you.
See you later.
See you, man. Always great to see you, Chip. I love hanging, mate.
um, it's a series that kind of popped up because we realized Elektra's Daredevil needed more space for her story than we could give her in Devil's Reign. So it's basically a Devil's Reign tie-in, and also the Daredevil book that's going to be on the stands because Daredevil stops once Devil Reign begins, and then we pick up Daredevil afterwards. So during the course of Devil's Reign, we had this 3-issue limited series with the artist Rafael de la Torre. That stems from Devil's Reign and stems from an encounter she has with Wilson Fisk, where Wilson Fisk basically says, "I've got your file. I know what you did, and I've given it to somebody who really wants to have a word with you." So I mean, Elektra's not a character who has too many secrets. Like, she's usually pretty kind of forward with the terrible things she's done.
Yeah.
So this is a big enough one that it kind of prompts her into action to take care of whoever's got this dirt on her. So that's the kind of impetus for the story, and yeah, we just see what happens from there.
Yeah, I guess because of the very nature of this story, it's somewhat spoiler filled. So I'm being unduly cautious about asking you about the fabric of the book.
Yeah, I mean, it's there are a lot of flashbacks in it to kind of her history with both Stick and the Hand and Matt. I kind of went deep into into the kind of bibliography of Elektra in those early years, like how young she actually was when she kind of started training with Stick, what point that she entered with the Hand. So that's been really interesting to kind of flesh out the character that we're kind of building up right now in the pages of Daredevil, because we've got her on this path in Daredevil of trying to be a hero, in order to convince Matt to join her to take down the Hand, which has been a lot of fun to kind of play with the complexity of that, and this just kind of ramps that up a bit more and kind of gives you a bit more insight into why she's doing this. Again, can't give away too much, but it's pretty essential for her story as Daredevil, and we introduce a bad guy who is going to play a big part through Daredevil going forward over the next year or so. So yeah, if you're a Daredevil reader, I feel guilty. If you're a Daredevil reader, I'm basically saying, yeah, you gotta buy Devil's Reign because it's the Daredevil story and Wilson Fisk, and you kind of have to pick this one up too because this is Elektra's story and how it's going to influence her and Matt going forward. So I know it's an expensive few months for you as a reader of Daredevil, which is not normally the case. Normally Daredevil's just like, hey, Daredevil's out once a month. It's not like buying Amazing Spider-Man or an X-Men book and you have to like buy all the crossovers.
Buy multiple books all the time.
I know, but I mean, we've talked about it before with Devil's Reign, just the idea of like the events kind of coming out of storytelling, and that's the case here. Like, Woman Without Fear is a story that I really needed to tell, and thankfully Marvel had the bandwidth and the space to let that happen during Devil's Reign.
I also love the kind of meta nature, and when I say meta, I mean in a good way, not in a Facebook kind of way. Co-opting one of my favorite buzzwords, is that's the biggest downer of the last 2 weeks as far as I'm concerned. But the meta nature of having your core book, spinning off your story-led event book, which goes across the entire published universe, and then spinning your own spin-off book out of that spin-off event,
Yeah,
I think
I
is a
know.
very audacious set of things to do, mate.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, it might fail spectacularly. We'll see. But I'm proud of all the stories at least. Nothing feels forced. Nothing feels like it's mandated from anyone, which is nice.
What can you tell me about the art on the book?
Oh my God, Raphael is. It's one of the only times in my career at Marvel where I'm getting the layouts and the inks, and I've got no notes. Like they're he hits it out of the park every time. And he's one of those artists that just kind of flies under the radar. But with this, it's like maybe I'm just playing to his strengths. I don't know what's happening here, but I've said it before with other artists, but like um, he's hit this new kind of peak with the art where I think um, people are going to be really surprised with how beautiful it is, and they should kind of keep an eye out for his name elsewhere. Like I mean, after I think one issue on this, myself and the editor were just like, are we going to get him on Daredevil too? Because like we always have fill-ins on Daredevil because Marco can't draw 18
Of
issues a
course,
year,
yeah.
especially with the event. And I'm like, oh yeah, Raphael is like, if we can get Raphael in rotation with Marco, it's just going to be gorgeous. Like his Elektra is really, really beautiful. Yeah, yeah, he's got a lovely style. There's a bit of a Greg Capullo vibe
Yeah.
in there, um, but while making it his own thing. His Elektra's stunning.
Oh, mate, you're saying all the right things. I can't wait to see it. Um,
Yeah.
how were you first? I was asking this question when we were talking about your Batman book the other day, The Night. But how were you first? To flip that question and apply it to Daredevil, how did you first become aware of Daredevil? What incarnation did you first encounter?
I mean, the first incarnation was like just a weird little kind of paperback novel-sized book that reprinted kind of old Stanley
Yeah,
stories.
I've got
Um,
a couple of those. Yeah, I know
yeah,
exactly the
yeah.
books you're talking about.
I know I was drawn in by the cover because like a painted cover with like Daredevil and like
Yeah,
Stiltman and Ox, and
yeah,
I'm just like, I don't know who this is, but I have to find out. I was quite young reading that, but then I really got into Daredevil with Ann Nocenti and John Romita Jr.
yeah.
Like that
That's
was that
cool.
was that was my real entry, which is weird because I kind of came in just after Frank Miller,
Yeah,
so I had no idea what the Miller stuff was or what the hubbub about that was, because I didn't read Born Again until later. But Nocenti John Romita Jr. That run is, I think, pound for pound the best actual Daredevil run in comics because and no offense to anyone else who's worked on the character, but they just took such big swings, and
yeah,
they were just like, it was as New York a comic as you could get.
yeah.
Like
Well,
you could
that's
you could
that
you
JR
could feel
Junior.
the love of it.
Yeah, that's it. It's that JR Junior authenticity, isn't it? And you can
Mhm.
feel it in the artwork. Yeah, I
Yeah, and
take your
both of them,
point.
like just the way the characters in the streets talked,
Yeah,
how they interacted with each other. Like it's funny. Like one of my favorite comics of all time is Daredevil 261, which Daredevil's not in it at all. It's a Human Torch issue
yeah,
where Human Torch decides to like fill in for a missing Daredevil, and it's so well drawn. It's so funny. It's so interesting. It's such a great take on that character, but also just on that level of New York of Hell's Kitchen of the '80s. Like, because he goes into like this bar to like be the tough guy. He's wearing a shirt that says like "bad" on it, and on the back it says "real bad." And like they're basically like the bar denizens are like, if you can take Tiny here in a fight without using your powers, like maybe we'll talk. And so it's like this huge fight between him and this hulking guy. He just manages to win. And then afterwards, he's like, you guys gonna talk? And they're in the bar's like, nah, I think we're just gonna kill you. It's such a funny, great moment because like, of course they're not gonna like just like trust them at their word. These characters in the bar, you're just like some freak that's walked in with fire powers, and then he like inadvertently
yeah.
burns the bar down, which I don't
Yeah,
think I don't think Human Torch had ever done in a comic before, where it's just like whoops.
yeah.
Um, yeah, it's such a good run, and that was my introduction, and I've kind of been in love with the character ever since.
Mate, that is a fantastic answer, and what I love is that you've touched upon something that is almost unique within the comics medium. I think is that in long-running books you can get these single episodes that might be part of an ongoing narrative, they might not be, but
Yeah.
they are. It's almost like having a top-up episode in the season of a cable show where
Hmm.
it feels so different to the rest of the run, but it's the one that everybody remembers.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the great examples you've just given. Two others for my money would be the dog episode of the dog issue of Hawkeye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which
Lucky.
Spider-Man, and it's just that's just a great piece of work. I think the whole
Yeah. Yeah.
thing.
Oh, for
Uh,
sure.
and then there's another one which is the. Do you remember the Guts Nelson episode that of during the Miller run, where it focuses on Foggy Nelson, where he adopts a persona of a kind of street level gangster called
Oh,
Guts
yeah.
Nelson,
Yeah. Yeah.
but Daredevil's sneaking around and taking everybody out,
Yeah.
around him, which he doesn't know.
Yeah. That's a
Yeah.
great one. Yeah.
But now I'm thinking about this. I think there's a podcast in this theme, mate, because I think it'd be easy to come up with 10 of those and just talk about them.
Just single issue. Yeah.
Those single issues, which are part of a run, but jump out like that and have this, this individual kind of feel to them. But the Nascenti and JL Jr. one, that's a really good example, I think.
Yeah. And also, I mean, that run also taught me, in retrospect, to kind of play along in the bigger Marvel universe, put your stamp on things, because I was always averse to anything I was working on tying into the events whenever there would be these crossovers. But I interviewed Nocenti a couple of years ago, and she was just like, she was an editor at Marvel at the time on the X-Men books, and so like she knew Daredevil had to tie into it. Like she'd be like a hypocrite if she bowed out of it. And like the Inferno and the Fall of the Mutants tie-ins are just some of the best comics, like just straight up best comics, and very insightful to the character and the supporting cast. And she just was able to really find a good take on what the story should be for a tie-in book, which is why I ended up doing the King in Black tie-ins for Daredevil,
Right.
because I realized, well, there's a challenge there, and like, can I make a story that really works for the character while also recognizing the chaos that's happening in New York City during this period? Which is, I had the option to not do it, and I chose to do it partly because of her and partly because of Jonathan Hickman, who always says, support your fellow writers and artists in their endeavors. So yeah, good on Nocenti.
Well. I mean, he's absolutely right, and I think that's a great way to sign out of this particular episode. Once again, we've been talking about Daredevil, the Woman Without Fear, and once again, guess what? We've only included pre-order links to this conversation right below where we're talking now.
Oh my God, amazing, the technology.
It's the least we can do. We're on the cutting edge. It's like,
Yeah.
Matrix 20 years later. On that note, mate, it's always great to chat with you. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. You take care, Chip.
All right, take it easy, Andrew.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.